Saving money at gas stations could be so much easier if you just avoid these 9 frustrating mistakes most drivers are making every single day. You're probably checking your tire pressure, you're doing oil changes, you're trying to drive carefully, but you're still spending way more at the pump than you should. And here's the frustrating part. After analyzing 1,000 miles of real driving data, 500 miles of conservative driving, followed by 500 miles of aggressive driving, I discovered that most drivers are wasting hundreds of dollars every year on fuel without even knowing it. And they're frustrated because they feel like they're doing everything right. So if you've ever watched your hard-earned money disappear at gas stations while other drivers seem to fill up half as often as you do, chances are one or more of these 9 mistakes is why. So let me show you what they are and exactly how you can fix them. So the 9th biggest mistake is that most drivers think they're saving money by putting off small repairs or skipping regular maintenance. You drive with slightly low tire pressure thinking it won't matter much. You wait an extra few thousand miles to change your air filter. You ignore that check engine light because the car still runs fine. But here's the problem. Poor vehicle maintenance impacts your fuel efficiency through several mechanisms that add up over time. When you don't replace that dirty air filter, you're restricting airflow and forcing your engine to work harder. When you neglect to clean your mass airflow sensor, you're affecting the proper air-fuel mixture. When you don't change spark plugs regularly, you're reducing combustion efficiency. Here's where most drivers get stuck. They think skipping routine maintenance saves money, but it actually leads to inefficient engine operation and increased fuel consumption. Your engine has to work harder to produce the same power output, which directly increases how much fuel you burn every mile you drive. The truth is that maintaining improper tire pressure is one of the most critical fuel-wasting mistakes you can make. Low tire pressure decreases gas mileage by about 0.3% per pound drop across all tires. This means that significantly underinflated tires can reduce fuel economy by several percentage points. Cold weather makes this problem worse because it causes tire pressure to drop. Low tire pressure makes the engine work harder to move the car, which leads to higher fuel consumption. Poor tire alignment adds to the issue. When the wheels are not properly aligned, the tires wobble slightly and create more resistance against the road. This extra friction lowers fuel efficiency and also wears out the tires faster, reducing their lifespan. The recommended tire pressure is usually around 35 psi, and you can find this number on a sticker inside the driver's door frame. Some drivers use advanced techniques by inflating the tires closer to the maximum pressure listed on the tire's sidewall. For example, raising the pressure from the recommended 30 psi to the maximum of around 40 psi can lower rolling resistance. This means the tires roll more easily, which helps the car use less fuel. In some cases, this can improve fuel efficiency by about 2%. However, going above the recommended level can affect ride comfort and traction, so it should be done carefully. However, even with perfect maintenance, this next mistake could kill your progress if you don't deal with it. The 8th biggest mistake drivers make is idling their car to warm it up, especially in cold weather. Many people believe it's necessary. They think it protects the engine. So they let the car sit running for several minutes, in the driveway, in parking lots, at drive-thrus. 3 to 5 minutes of idling, over and over again. What they don't realize is that this wastes a massive amount of fuel. And in most modern cars, it's simply not needed. But here's the problem. Idling represents one of the most obvious yet frequently ignored fuel-wasting mistakes, because when a car idles, it burns fuel while achieving 0 mileage. The engine consumes gasoline without moving the vehicle forward at all. This is where most drivers get stuck. Cold engines consume nearly twice as much fuel as warm ones during those first few minutes. And when you're idling to warm up, you're running the engine at its least efficient state, wasting fuel while getting 0 miles per gallon. Typical fuel consumption while idling ranges from approximately 1/4 to 1 1/3 gallons per hour. This can vary significantly depending on engine size and operating conditions. But the waste adds up faster than most people realize. The fact is, modern fuel-injected engines don't need long idling times to warm up, unlike older carbureted engines. In most cases, just 10 to 30 seconds of idling is enough to circulate the oil and lubricate the engine before driving. Beyond that, you're simply burning fuel with no mechanical benefit. The truth is, gentle driving warms up your engine faster than just letting it idle. That's because even light driving makes the engine work a bit more, which creates more heat and helps it reach its proper temperature sooner. Idling may seem harmless, but it actually causes wear. Ford estimates that 1 hour of idling puts the same amount of wear on the engine as driving about 30 miles. So if you idle for 1 hour each day, that adds up to around 64,000 miles of engine wear in a year. If your car is stopped for more than 10 seconds, it's more efficient to turn off the engine. Starting the engine uses about the same fuel as idling for 30 to 60 seconds. So for most modern engines, the break-even point is just 6 to 10 seconds. Even with perfect idling control, this next mistake will keep you stuck spending extra money at gas stations if you don't overcome it. The seventh biggest mistake is ignoring how small habits add up. You think removing a few things from the trunk won't make a difference. You don't plan your trips or try to avoid multiple cold starts. You carry extra weight, assuming it doesn't matter. You drive with a trunk full of stuff you haven't touched in months. You run several short trips instead of combining errands into one. Here's the reality. Extra weight reduces fuel efficiency by about 1% for every additional 100 pounds. Reducing rotational mass like tires, rims, and rotors has an even greater impact because rotational components require additional energy to spin up during acceleration. This is where most drivers get stuck. What really burns fuel is treating every errand as a separate journey. Multiple short trips are fuel killers because each trip starts with your engine at its least efficient state. Consolidating errands allows the engine to reach and maintain its efficient operating temperature. The truth is, your engine has to work harder to move that extra mass, and that means burning more fuel just to maintain normal performance. But the lack of planning is what really kills your fuel economy. So here's what to do instead. Remove unnecessary items from your trunk and back seat and plan your weekly errands in advance. Combine multiple stops into single trips. Start with the farthest destination first while your engine is cold, then work your way back home, allowing your engine to operate at optimal temperature for the majority of your driving. The sixth biggest mistake is misunderstanding when to use air conditioning and when to roll down the windows. You always roll down the windows to save fuel, or you blast the air conditioning all the time, thinking it doesn't matter. But here's the problem. Both approaches can waste fuel if used at the wrong time. The real issue is not having a clear plan. Most people treat every driving situation the same, but the right choice depends on your speed. Here's the basic trade-off. Air conditioning uses power from the engine through the compressor, which increases fuel consumption. But rolling down the windows creates drag by messing with the car's aerodynamics, making the engine work harder too, especially at higher speeds. This is where most drivers get stuck. Research shows there's a tipping point between 45 and 55 miles per hour. That's where the fuel-saving balance shifts. The truth is, at low speeds below 45 miles per hour, it's more efficient to turn off the air conditioning and roll the windows down. Drag from open windows is small at low speeds, so you save fuel by avoiding the compressor load. But at higher speeds, above 55 miles per hour, wind resistance from open windows becomes a big problem. Using air conditioning with the windows up is more efficient. Tests show that driving with windows down can reduce fuel efficiency by up to 20% in sedans and 8% in SUVs. Using air conditioning drops fuel efficiency by about 10% in both. So here's what to do instead. Follow the 45 mile per hour rule. Below 45, use windows and no AC. Above 45, close the windows and turn the AC on. To make your air conditioning more efficient, use recirculate mode after the cabin cools down. Set the temperature to around 60 degrees Fahrenheit, turn off auto mode, and control the fan manually. This reduces how often the compressor turns on, saving even more fuel. The fifth biggest mistake is thinking that manually controlling your speed always saves fuel. You believe you're being efficient by adjusting your speed based on how you feel, passing other cars often, or not keeping a steady pace. But here's the problem. These small changes in speed actually add up. What most people don't realize is that constant speed changes on the highway make the engine work harder. Every time you speed up or slow down, the engine has to adjust its power output, using more fuel than simply keeping a steady speed. And this is where most drivers get stuck. Not using cruise control when it's available wastes fuel. Using cruise control on highways can improve fuel economy by about 8 to 16%. It works best on flat roads by reducing the small ups and downs in speed that happen with manual driving, keeping the engine in a more efficient rhythm. The truth is, if you're trying to find the most efficient speed, look at the tachometer and aim for the lowest RPM in the highest gear where the car still drives comfortably. That's usually where the engine is most efficient. But here's where it gets different. On hills, standard cruise control may actually burn more fuel because it tries to hold your speed steady by adding extra throttle. A skilled driver can save more fuel on hills by letting the car slow down slightly going uphill and speed up slightly going downhill. Cars with CVT, continuously variable transmissions, do this work for you. CVTs keep the engine running at its most efficient speed no matter how fast you're going by adjusting the gear ratio automatically. Modern cars with adaptive cruise control take it even further. They not only hold your speed, but also keep a safe distance from the car ahead, adjusting smoothly without wasting fuel. So here's what to do instead. Whether it's manual or automatic, the goal stays the same. Keep your speed steady to avoid unnecessary engine work and save fuel. The fourth biggest mistake drivers make is following too closely and driving aggressively in traffic, thinking it will help them reach their destination faster. You tailgate other cars, switch lanes constantly, and keep a tiny gap because you're worried someone might cut in. But here's the problem. You're burning more fuel and barely saving any time. The real issue is how this driving affects your fuel use. When you follow too closely, you're constantly hitting the brakes when the car ahead slows down. Then you press the gas to speed back up. This constant stop and go burns way more fuel than just keeping a steady pace. This is where most drivers get stuck. When you're tailgating, you can't see traffic flow ahead clearly. You react late, slam the brakes, then waste fuel trying to speed up again. Each time you do this cycle, you're throwing away the fuel it took to reach your speed and using even more to get back there. The truth is, in city driving, this aggressive style can raise your fuel use by 30 to 40% compared to calm driving. On highways, it's still costing you up to 4% more fuel. But here's what really helps. Keeping a safe distance smooths out your driving. A 2-second gap gives you time to react, which means fewer sudden stops and less wasted fuel. It also makes driving feel calmer and lowers your stress. There's one interesting fuel-saving trick on highways. Driving behind large trucks at a safe distance can improve your fuel economy by around 20% through drafting. The truck blocks wind resistance for you. But stay safe. Always keep proper distance, because trucks can kick up debris. The third biggest mistake is thinking that driving at 75 to 80 miles per hour on the highway is normal and that the time saved is worth the extra fuel. Most drivers don't realize how much faster fuel use increases at higher speeds. Here's the truth. As you go faster, air resistance grows much faster than your speed. It increases with the square of your speed. So if you drive 20% faster, drag doesn't just go up by 20%, it jumps by about 44%. That means your engine has to work way harder just to push through the air. This is where most drivers get stuck. Most cars get their best gas mileage between 40 and 60 miles per hour, with 55 being the sweet spot. Once you go over 60, your fuel economy starts dropping fast. A typical small car might get 30 miles per gallon at 60 miles per hour, but at 80 miles per hour, it might only get 20. That's a huge difference for a small speed increase. Problem is, driving at 75 instead of 65 uses about 27% more fuel. At very high speeds, like 120 miles per hour, fuel use can double compared to driving at 60. Some tests show that at 100 miles per hour, fuel consumption can be 4 times higher than at 50. So going that fast might cut your travel time in half, but it could make your fuel cost up to 4 times higher. That's because pushing through air gets much harder the faster you go. Here's what to do instead. Find your car's most efficient speed range. For most vehicles, it's between 50 and 60 miles per hour. That's also the speed range used in government fuel economy tests. Driving much slower than that isn't helpful either, because you're not using the car's momentum well, and the engine may run less efficiently. The second biggest mistake most drivers make is not understanding how their engine works best. You either use too high a gear at low speeds, which makes the engine struggle, or you rev the engine too high. thinking that more RPM always means better performance. You might shift whenever it feels right, or follow old advice to keep RPM as low as possible all the time, but that doesn't always work. Here's the problem. You're not matching engine speed with the right gear and load. Every engine has a specific RPM range where it runs most efficiently. This is the sweet spot. Running the engine outside this range, either too high or too low, wastes fuel. This is where most people get confused. Many think that doubling the engine speed means the engine uses twice as much fuel, but that's not true. Fuel use depends on how much power the engine needs to make, how far down the gas pedal is, what gear you're in, and what kind of road you're driving on. The truth is, out of all these factors, engine load is the most important. Load means how hard the engine is working. Going uphill or accelerating fast adds load. Even if your RPM stays the same, higher load means the engine burns more fuel. Most engines work best around 2,000 RPM, give or take a few hundred. This efficient RPM range is also where the engine makes the most useful power, called peak torque. But here's what really kills fuel economy. A lot of drivers with manual transmissions shift at the wrong time. If you wait too long to shift, the engine stays at high RPM, wasting fuel. But if you shift too early, the engine bogs down and struggles, which also wastes fuel. At high RPMs, the engine often can't burn all the fuel completely. Some of the fuel goes out the exhaust unused because there's not enough time or air to finish burning all the fuel when the engine is spinning too fast. That means wasted energy and worse fuel economy. The number one biggest mistake most drivers make is thinking that pressing the gas pedal harder gets them to their destination faster, and that braking hard is just part of normal driving. You floor the gas to speed up, you slam the brakes at red lights or stop signs, you don't think about coasting or planning ahead. But here's the problem. Aggressive acceleration and hard braking are the most fuel-wasting habits you can have. They can cancel out all the savings from any other smart driving tips you try. Here's why. When you step hard on the gas, your engine burns way more fuel than necessary. During hard acceleration, your fuel economy can drop to around 9 miles per gallon. In city driving, aggressive habits like this can raise fuel use by 30 to 40%. This is where most drivers get stuck. Even on highways, aggressive acceleration and braking hurt fuel economy by 15 to 30%. In stop-and-go traffic, it's even worse, up to 40% more fuel used. The truth is, when you brake hard, you're throwing away energy you already paid for with fuel. That energy was used to get the car moving, but braking turns it into heat that just disappears into the brake pads. That's wasted fuel, wasted energy. But here's what really saves fuel. Coasting. That means easing off the gas early and letting the car slow down naturally. Most modern cars use deceleration fuel shutoff. When you coast in gear with your foot off the gas, the engine stops using fuel completely. You're saving fuel by doing nothing, just letting the car roll. Some people think coasting in neutral saves fuel, but that's not true in modern cars. When you coast in neutral, the engine still has to idle, burning fuel. But when you coast in gear, modern engines cut off fuel during engine braking, so you use zero fuel. So here's what to do instead. Accelerate gently and slow down early. If you see a red light ahead, take your foot off the gas early and let the car coast. Sometimes the light turns green before you reach it, and you avoid a full stop. That saves even more fuel, because starting from a full stop takes the most energy. The best way to measure your fuel savings is the pump-to-pump method. Fill up your tank, reset the trip meter, and divide the miles you drove by the gallons you added at the next fill-up. That gives you your real miles per gallon. If you follow all 9 of these smart driving techniques, you can lower your fuel costs by 25% or more. Most people save between $200 and $500 a year without buying a new car or changing their route. Just by changing the way they drive,